Okay, good morning first. This doesn't. This is good morning. Alright, and this is it. Let's just start the work. Where are you? Right here. So, three papers I want to look at. First one is by Google, Min Chen team, and Top K off policy correction for a reinforced recommender system, and reinforce all in capital. What does that mean? Abstract. Industrial recommender systems deal with extremely large action spaces because unlike language that we know all the words. Recommender system deal with like videos, and each video is separate, different from the other one. So it's not like making a sentence. Extremely large action spaces, many millions of items to recommend. Moreover, they need to serve billions of users who are unique at any point in time. So, a lot of content, each user also personalized to each user. Imagine we have subscription. Moreover, they need to serve billions of users who are unique at any point in time, making a complex user state space. Luckily, huge quantities of logged implicit feedback. Where is it? Or wait a minute. You click dwell time. For learning from logged feedback is however subject to biases caused by only observing feedback on recommendation selected by previous version of the recommender. In this work, we present a general recipe for addressing such biases in production. Top K recommender system at YouTube. Oh, this time they say YouTube. They didn't say a major video company. Such biases in a production Top K. What does production Top K mean? Built with a policy gradient based algorithm, reinforced. Oh, okay, it's the name of. That's why it's all in capital, because it is a policy gradient based. Because it is all in. It's a algorithm. The contribution of the papers are: 1. Scaling reinforced to a production recommender system with an action space on the order of millions. Wow. So, algorithm, action space, order of million, applying off policy correction. What does off policy correction mean? To address data biases in learning from logged feedback collection from multiple behavior policies. Proposing a novel Top K off policy correction. What is Top K off policy? To account for our policy recommending multiple items at a time, showcasing the value of exploration. We demonstrate the efficacy of our approaches through a series of simulation and multiple live experiments on YouTube. Actually, that's a good idea. I wanna open GPT. raining hard in Boston. I can see my mustache. Uh, so this is it. I uploaded the paper to ChatGPT. The uploaded document, top K of policy correction or reinforcement recommender, details a reinforcement learning approach for recommender system with large action space, such as YouTube. It discusses scaling reinforce to production system. Scaling reinforce, which was an algorithm to production system addressing data sparsity and bias issues. Off policy correction for learning from historical feedback. Top K of policy correction, improving multi-item recommendation quality, experimental findings from simulations and live deployments, showcasing the advantages of these methods for user satisfaction. Alright, now we can go read the paper. Any question? When we present a general as we address in such process. Of policy correction. From logged feedback collected from multiple behavior policies. So what does off policy correction mean? Off policy correction is a technique in reinforcement learning. See, because I didn't know RL. Used when the data for training a policy is collected using a different historical policy. I see. Perfect. So you have some data, but in that data, we use the policy to gain that. Now we want to use this data to come up with a new policy. I think it means that we kind of have to debias the effect of previous policy on the data gathered. It addresses the mismatch between the distribution of actions taken by the current policy being learned and the historical policy that generated the log data. Without correction, the training process might produce biased results that reflect the behavior of the historical policy rather than the desired optimal policy. Agreed. Why is it needed? Log data biases. Because it is based on previous policy. Recommender systems often collect user interaction data based on recommendations generated by earlier version of the system, historical policies. These historical policies might favor certain items over others, created skewed datasets. Training objective mismatch. Reinforcement learning methods typically aim to optimize the current policy. If the training data does not reflect the distribution of the current policy, the optimization process can lead to a suboptimal result. And how does it work? That's also interesting. I love ChatGPT. just the contribution. So they use importance weighting. This accounts for the likelihood of actions under the current policy versus the historical policy. For a given action and state S, so we have two pi, new policy pi and old pi. Importance weighting. Each action is weighted by the ratio of its probability under the current policy pi to its probability under historical policy beta. So this weight is pi over beta. Variance reduction. Techniques like capping, no capping, or normalization are often used to control the variance introduced by large weights. So what is a large weight? An action that was very probable has good probability now, but it was very rare at the previous policy. Benefits: unbiased estimates ensure that learned policy is not biased by the behavior of historical policy. Effective learning helps improve the relevance of recommendations by focusing on long-term user satisfaction rather than just replacing past behavior. In the context of uploaded paper, of policy correction allows the recommender system to incorporate logged user feedback while learning a more optimal recommendation strategy. To address data biases in learning from logged feedback collected from multiple behavior policies, proposing a novel top-K of policy correction to account for. So what is a top-K of policy? To account for our policy recommendation, multiple items at a time. I think it's just top K, recommends K items at a time. Showcasing the value of exploration. We demonstrate the efficacy of our approach through a series of simulation and multiple live experiments on YouTube. So what is top K of policy? Top K of policy correction is a specialized technique in reinforcement learning for addresses the challenge of making multiple recommendations, a set of K items at once instead of single recommendation. So like in YouTube, they recommended set of videos, right? Not only one. This adds complexity because one, the reward of the set depends on how users interact with one or more of the items. And the action space grows exponentially as K increases. Bias toward top one without a specific adjustment. The model might focus too heavily on optimizing for the best single item and neglect the quality of the rest of the recommendation. It's also interesting. Well, this top K policy maybe is good for stopping flooding or either flooding or the flea market. However, flooding is not our question anymore. Um, we are focusing on multi-touch. Yeah, why did you? I mean, flooding was a very interesting question, to be honest. I don't know why didn't they give us that? It shows up a lot of policy correction, top gap policy correction. Key items that adjust the policy gradient to reflect the likelihood that will appear in the final top case sets. Key aspects set recommendation the policy outputs a distribution over sets of key items rather than single items. Probability adjustment, the probability of an item being in the top K set is derived from the softmax policy, accounting for overlaps and duplicates. Alpha theta of A given S is 1 minus P theta of A given S, where P theta is a probability of an item A in state S. And what is alpha? Oh, an item being. Gradient of modification, the likelihood that an item appears in the top case set, R, alpha over beta, R, this is gradient with respect to theta, log alpha theta of A. Multiplier effect, an additional multiplier lambda chi is introduced, which increases the gradient for underrepresented. Actually, this can be for flooding. That can be really good for flooding. Improved diversity. Correction encourages a more balanced allocation of probability mass, just multiple relevant items rather than one. Higher aggregate reward or two. Multiple items, improving overall user satisfaction. Reduced bias, this is the richer problem. Exactly, this is the flooding. The item already popular under the historical dominator. Quality of the top K recommendation rather than just the top one. Alright, sounds really promising. I like it. In practice, improve diversity. The okay. Multiplier effect and additional multiplier lambda chi is introduced, which increases the gradient for underrepresented items and reduces it for overrepresented. But we don't have it here in the gradient. Benefits, improved diversity, the correction. Top one, higher aggregate rewards. reduce the bias. Okay, I read this. In the paper, others demonstrate that applying top K of policy correction leads to better user experiences in simulations and live experiments. For example, it results in smoother policies that balance likelihood across relevant items. Smoother policies balance likelihood across relevant metrics like total watch time by focusing on the quality of the top K recommendation rather than just top one. Back to the paper. Alright, some code. So the ACM reference format. Then we got to introductions. I'm gonna read it. So each user is interested in a small fraction of the content on the internet, and we need to personalize it. So right item, right user at the right time. Even one user at different times, 6 different kinds of contents. So the recommender system has to adapt to users' shifting interest. Oh, okay. So users' interest is the state. Based on their historical. And then it says others contributed equally. Yes, I mean, compared to Netflix, YouTube is amount of content is, oh my god. So even one user is seeing only small fraction of the items, content, and then explicit feedback on them is even smaller. Therefore, recommender system receive extremely sparse data for training in general. Like Netflix price dataset was only 0.1% dense. Wow, it's Netflix. So sparsity is something big. Ugh. So one thing in RL that is interesting is that there is a final goal or objective. For example, in chess, that you wanna optimize or win the game, for example, but you will not uh, realize that reward until the very end of the game. So therefore you need to come up with some intermediate success elements for yourself, which is like real life, and I really liked it. In a lot of senses, RL sounds like real life situation. So large state and action space. One of the challenges in reinforcement learning. What was the state? Who is the user, and what time? I mean, what is his uh, intent on being on YouTube, for example? Is it entertainment? Wants comedy? I don't drama? Does he want educational content? So user interest. What else? Two, and then action is the video to recommend. And the set of items available to recommend is non-stationary, and new items are brought into the system constantly. So action space is growing actually. And it's interesting. Action space is growing because of new content. I was thinking the other day, what happens to all these YouTube videos? Do they have enough space to uh, save them or store them? Like, won't they decide at the time that, alright, some of these videos we need to delete them? Like, Control Shift Delete. Because we don't have enough space. It seems they keep showing everything. But the new content is being put on internet, and we have less implicit feedback on the new content, by the way. So they should give the new content some chance to be seen, by the way. Everything is about being just at the moment and everything. Ever growing action space with new items having even sparser feedback. Okay, let's go faster. So adapting the reinforced algorithm to a neural candidate generator, a top K recommender system with extremely large action states. Classic RL applications have overcome data inefficiencies by collecting large quantities of training data with self-play and simulation, like chess, to like the same RL plays with itself. Complex dynamic of the recommender system has made simulation for generating realistic data non-viable. It's not like a game here that. Yes, because you don't like you cannot do it like it's not like chess. We can say okay, our algorithm is competing against itself. We need the feedback from a real human being. Mm-hmm. So we need to do off policy. We need to keep one policy, see how it goes with the users, and then update our policy. So by neural recommendation policy, they mean top K. Top K of policy correction. Okay. Benefits in live experiments. We demonstrate in live experiments, which was rarely done in existing RL literature, the value of these approaches to improve user long-term satisfaction. related work. So introduction done. Let's go faster. This is the case also with ranking algorithms, right? They say, okay, this product is this much relatable or popular, but it is based on a current ranking, and we need to debias the effect of this ranking from this popularity and then come up with a new ranking based on. So one shot is enough. I think it's called counterfactual learning to rank. Deep cube learning. So it's based on a policy gradient based approach. Something we want to do as well, that we want to make all those eyeballing costs policy dependent, so that we can take the gradient with respect to the policy and come up with a better policy. Applying deep neural networks to recommender systems is called neural net recommenders. I think now everybody is thinking about LLM recommenders. Bandit problems in recommender system. I think online learning is related because new content is being uploaded and we don't have much feedback on it. So what is the value of it? UCB. Thompson sampling for news recommendation and display advertising. rain, guys. It's just heavy rain. And I'm not going to camp to school for meeting today with this rain. As a matter of fact, offline evaluation of a given policy is already a challenge in the recommender system setting, because it's just big space, I guess. Also, inverse propensity scoring, we had it in ranking as well. It shows up here too. Inverse propensity scoring has also been employed to improve a serving policy at a scale in oh, it's the related work, so it's not that important. Deep neural networks, DNN. So, section 3, reinforced recommender. Guys, you need to be faster. I need to be faster, and there is a lot of math going on. It's a good paper, it's a mathematical paper. I need to be faster. Also, it models users. Okay, one thing I like to know is how they model history of user interaction with the system. For each user, we consider a sequence of user historical interaction with the system, recording the actions taken by recommender, i.e. video recommended, as well as user feedback, such as clicks and watch time. Given such a sequence, we predict the next action to take. Videos to recommend so that users' satisfaction metric, like indicated by clicks or watch time, improve. However, I think this reinforcement learning problem is not of the nature that it has a long-term reward. The reward is already if they are watching or they are clicking, it's good. By the way, what is click on YouTube? Okay. So we have a Markov decision process. We have a state space, action space, P, which is probability of each state, R, which is the reward, rho 0, I don't know, gamma probably is the importance we put on the future rewards. A is the action space, which is of millions, so it's of million, but discrete. P from state, action, and state to R, state transition probability. So from, if you are in this state and take this action, which state will you go? But what is the state exactly? For example, he likes comedy, and then there is another video about animals. So if you are in comedy, we show you a comedy video, will you go? Now you wanna watch a an animal comedy? Oh, that's difficult. I don't know why. Like having this as given is very interesting. I don't know how they have it. R reward, state action gives you a reward. However, this is for recommender system. In ranking, we don't need this like from this state and action you go to the denominators. Not in this sense. Let's see what they define state. I can ask ChatGPT. Current status of context, which is derived from state, is part of the Markov decision process. Yeah, the state encapsulates the user's evolving interests and preferences based on their historical interaction. So it is captured in the history. Right. State is the history of interaction. Okay, now it's better. But it has a sense of, it encapsulates the evolving interest. Past user interaction, videos, watch, click, dwell, contextual information, device type, time of the day, page layout. The paper models the state transition recurrent neural network, where the next state is predicted based on the current state and the action taken, AT. So based on the action and state, you will have the next state, which a recurrent neural network finds out. F, recurrent cell function, long short-term memory, gated recurrent units, or chaos free. UAT, what is UAT? Oh, it's not AT, but it's UAT. Oh, row zero is the initial state distribution. Like, okay, 10% of the users wants, or this user 10% of the time wants to watch comedy, funny videos, 10% cats, 10% dogs, whatever. Gamma is discount factor for future rewards. To the user state S. So we want to find the pi policy, but we already have P. I think P also is very interesting. Max pi expected of tau based on pi. What is tau? Expected cumulative reward obtained by the R of tau. where r of tau is t from 0 to tau. Why absolute value of tau? I don't know. R of st and at. Over the trajectories. Oh, tau is the trajectory. So S0, A0, S1, A1, with state action trajectory, and the absolute value is the length of it. S0 comes from rho 0 exactly, AT comes from pi, and st plus 1 comes from p, of course. But do we have it? How do we learn it? By the recurrent neuron. Also, p depends on pi, or they should be related. So finding pi is also related to finding p. It is approximated using, dude, having ChatGPT makes reading these papers much easier. It is approximated using a recurrent neural network to predict the next state. How is P modeled? The RNN updates the state vector S using input features that include user's historical state ST, action embedding, which encodes information about the recommended item. So it is a chaos-free recurrent neural network due to its computational efficiency and stability. Update equations are st plus 1 equals zt Hadamard tangent hyperbolic st plus it tangent hyperbolic wa uat, zt update gate, it input gate, wa weight matrix for the action embedding uat. Element-wise multiplication. Hadamard is element-wise multiplication. What is update gate and input gate? Why is P not explicitly probabilistic? For larger scale recommendation systems, simplicity instead of explicitly modeling PSM, because it's a big space. We don't need all of it. Where is the next state vector? Okay, scalability, modeling PSM. Where significant computation, which is infeasible. Empirical approximation, transition dynamics are approximated through RNN. That's very beautiful. I'm happy, I'm learning a lot. The state transition function piece indirectly learned via the RNN, which in evolving embedding of action historical. Alright, sounds very good. So we want to maximize the expected reward. S0 comes from rho 0, IT comes from pi, st plus 1 comes from p. right? So you have initial S, you go pi gives you next action, action and a state, P gives you next state. And then pi gives you next action, then P gives you next. Different families of, alright, so for P we are using recurrent neural networks. For pi it's called reinforcement. I think even the pi is by recurrent. Different families of methods are available to society. Q-learning, policy gradient, and black box optimization. Here we focus on a policy gradient based approach called reinforce. We assume a function. So pi is parameterized by this element theta, and we will take the gradient with respect to WRT theta. And theta is in RD. The gradient of the expected cumulative reward with respect to the policy parameters can be derived analytically thanks to the log trick. What is log trick? Oh. Yielding the following reinforced gradient. So expected of reward, gradient of theta, what is it? So what it says expected of tau given pi theta. Tau is the sequence of action and state. R tau times gradient with respect to theta of log pi theta of tau. But previously we just had expected of tau r theta, r tau. Sigma on tau pi theta r tau. So it is unbiased. It is also interesting, this line. What is this log trick? Oh, the gradient of the expected. Oh, this is the gradient of this pi. Wait, what? So gradient of pi, but it is like a recursive formula? Expected cumulative reward. The gradient of expected cumulative reward, so the policy making, the gradient of expected of r tau is actually expected of r tau gradient of log of pi tau. Following reinforcement, right? Line RL where the policy gradient gamma theta is computed on trajectories generated by policy under consideration. The estimated of the policy gradient is unbiased and decoupled. So then we have the formula for the expected of r gradient pi as it's almost tau pi theta RT. Sorry, isn't it the definition? Here it says they are close. Tau should be general. Oh, it's like a ergodic thing. Yeah. Replacing our tau with a discounted review share reward. Oh no, it's not ergodic. It is ergodic. RT T prime to T to tau T gamma T prime. What is it? First explain this section to me. Log trick driving. Mm-hmm. Pi theta of tau is that? Log trick, alright. The log trick is a mathematical technique using the gradient of an expectation and the identity that gradient of theta of pi theta of t equals pi theta of tau. Right, so it's a recursive. Is it recursive? Yes. What I don't understand, what is the difference of getting gradient of pi theta of tau and getting gradient of pi theta of log of pi theta of tau? Turns products into sum. I get it, okay. Mm-hmm. How the uh, why uh, so they differ in both computation and interpretation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's not a huge trick, it's just a simple math. Yes. Okay, everything makes sense now. Right. Perfect. Ah, shit, my legs are. Oh, it makes it unlock. Alright, let's be faster now. Wait, this motherfucker doesn't 3 up like that. Off policy. Of policy correction. We received logged feedback of actions chosen by historical policy. Of policy, we know what is of policy. Yeah, we need to give it for a while with the policy, get the data, device it, coming up with a new policy. We focus on addressing the data biases that arise when applying policy gradient methods under this setting. So they collect data with a periodicity of several hours and compute many policy parameter updates in new version of the policy in production. And I had this question actually, similar question from my son that, all right, we came up with a new policy. For this new policy, we again gather data and come up with a new policy based on the data. Is it possible that from this new policy, we go back to the previous policy? Like policy is not very sacred by itself as well. So data depends on the policy, old policy, kind of we debias it, come up with a new policy. Is it just one time thing or we keep doing it for the new policy as well? A naive policy gradient estimator is no longer unbiased, as the gradient in equation 2 requires from the updated policy by data, while the trajectory we collect were drawn from a combination of historical policies. We address the distribution mismatch with importance weighting. Consider trajectory sampled according to a behavior policy beta. The off-policy correction estimator is then pi theta of top over beta of top RT then. So it is the new gradient. So just what was equation 2 RTA? It used to be RT sigma tau on pi theta T 0 delta RT delta. So before this inner sigma, we should pi theta of tau over beta. It's very interesting. And if we come up with an alpha tau for the next step, will be so what I'm saying is that pi depends on beta. Where for sure it should. Yeah, so okay, ChatGPT was wrong about something. It showed me pi theta of tau. This correction produces an unbiased estimator whenever the trajectory is, so it is unbiased. That's the action sample according. The variance of the estimator is huge. Unbiased, but the variance is huge due to the chained products, leading quickly to very low or high values of the importance weights. When ChatGPT is wrong, it's just stupid. The others do not depend, just the policy depends on theta. Leading quickly to very low or high values of the importance rater. To reduce the variance of each gradient term corresponding to time t on the trajectory, we approximate the importance weights by first ignoring the terms after time t in the chain product and further taking a first order approximation. T prime 0 to tau, T prime 0 to T prime is T prime, T prime, P pi theta, ST, ST, T, ST. Where is equal 18. So you said this is almost equal to pi as over beta as. This weight, pi of theta over beta of theta, you're saying pi at t over beta at t, which yields a bias estimator of the policy gradient with lower variance. Alright, so the whole of policy correction, simplified it, it is biased. But low variance. First order approximation on total reward is bounded in magnitude of O of expected of S d to the beta dTV. Oh, that's weird. Oh, dTV is the total variance between pi and beta. So you're saying total reward is bounded by how close those two are. But beta, I think, gravitates pi towards itself. It's very interesting, to be honest. I mean, you don't have clear answers, but I really like it. It shows you like your first impression. If beta is your first impression, your new impression, how it depends on it. Ah, I like this part. Parameterizing pi theta, the policy pi theta. What is this theta? Now parameterizing the policy. So it is the neural network on P. we model our glyph on the user's state at each time t, which captures both evolving user interest using an n-dimensional vector that is st in Rn, the action taken at each time t, trajectory is embedded using them. So UAT is the action embedding at time t in Rm. State transition PSAS with a recurrent neural network C++1 FST UAT. Dude, this is really nice. I'm really excited. This is already a popular and ended up using a simplified cell called chaos-free due to its stability and computational efficiency. The state is updated recursively. Oh, okay, that's the formula ChatGPT gave me. ZT is sigma UZ SDWZ UAT, and I plus BZIT is also sigmoid of I UAT BI are the update and input gate respectively. What is updated? What is it? I don't know what is an update and input gate. Oh, recurrent neural network has a structure and they have gate. Chaos-free recurrent neural network. Update gate says how much ST is in ST plus 1. It's close to 1. Most of the information is retained is 0. Input game determines how much code is close to 1. A lot of input is in the ST plus 1. Formula, so ZT is sigma of ST. It already has ST. It already has U of AT, and with a sigmoid activation function, UZUI weight matrices for the current state ST. Bias terms for the gates. I see. Can you draw the Z theta ST IT? So already ZT and IT have U and S, because it is recurrent, and then they are multiplied in ST and U. IT acts as an attention mechanism, decides how much weight to give to new information. Memory retention, very interesting. Can you plot the flow of Can you plot the RNN flow chart, whatever. So that's amazing. So can I have it? Right. Input UAT goes to ST plus 1 nexus. Calculate the hard. So that's it. So we know now everything. Where's theta or the update and input gauges. Now we want to find how it is dependent on theta. Alright. On a user state S, the policy pi theta of AS is then modeled with a simple softmax. So pi theta is a function of theta. Where is theta? So pi theta of A and S is softmax expt S. This S is not a state, is it? It is actually. Transpose VA. VA is the embedding of action over T over sum of all the actions, which is a probability distribution. But where is the theta? Theta is not in S. Is another embedding for each action A in the action space. And T is a temperature that is normal set to 1. Using a higher value in T produces a smoother policy over the action space. Realization term in the softmax requires going over all the possible actions, the order of millions in our setting. I see. Oh, okay. So the sum in the it's going over all actions, millions of them, and it's difficult. To speed up the computation, we perform sampled softmax. So instead of softmax, they use sampled softmax, which is amazing. During training, at serving time, we used an efficient nearest neighbor SER algorithm to retrieve top actions, nearest neighbors, and approximate the softmax probability using these actions only, as detailed in section 5. See, this paper is just a report of what they did in practice. Parameter theta of the poly, okay, theta. ChatGPT is not really good at drawing plot system. Contains the two action embedding U and V. So okay, theta is two things, U and V, which are the action embeddings, two action embeddings, as well as a weight matrix. There's UZ, UI, all of these parameters, UZ, UI, WZ, WI, BZ, BI, these are theta, and we need to take the gradient with respect to them. And also V, yes, and UA. and biases. So figure 1, okay, finally we found theta. All right. Figure 1 shows a diagram describing the neural architecture of the main policy pi theta given an observed trajectory sampled from a behavior policy beta. The new policy first generates a model of the user state by starting with an initial state as 0 and iterating through the recurrent cells as equation 4 given the user status policy and cast the distribution on action space through a softmax. I think now everything is, I have a good picture of everything. With pi theta at plus 1 we can then produce a policy gradient as an equation theta policy. So all of those parameters are the theta. We send it to a recurrent cell, then user state is t+1, label context, and then ReLU. What is a ReLU? Reinforcement learning unit. What one? Block gradient. Softmax to beta. To avoid interference between the two heads, gradient from behavior policy head do not propagate back to RNN. That's very amazing. Alright, I wanna see. So it has a loop, RNN has a loop. Like this. S0 goes and then there are some outputs. This is it. Okay. Feed forward, but recurrent goes back. So it is the f function we talked. Mhm. Estimating the behavior policy beta. Oh, we don't even have the behavior policy beta. We need to estimate it. Um, so let me take a break. I read this, and then sections like variance reduction techniques maybe not as necessary, and simulation. Those parts I will go much faster.